Long have I waited, awakens. The blizzard overtakes Yoa, and she passes out from exhaustion. Upon waking, she finds herself in a makeshift tent under a rocky shelf, protected from the snow. The blizzard has passed. Remnants of a campfire are smoking a few yards away. Yoa's effects are gathered in a pile next to her. On top of her things is a note. There are no words, only a crude drawing of a map. The map seems to lead away from the bluffs and into the shield wood. In the middle of the woods, there is a circle drawn around what looks like a waterfall, with 3 X's drawn. Yoa wonders if this represents her missing family. In the corner, there is a drawing of a snake mask, like the one the elf was wearing. Was this the elf's doing? Or was someone trying to protect her from him? Hello and welcome to Just Roll With It, an improvised tabletop RPG podcast. I'm your host, Nick Walker. Just Roll With It is a production of the Cult 1440 Entertainment Network. Check out cult1440productions.com for more info on our different podcasts and YouTube videos. For now, let's jump back into the action. In case you forgot, we are playing Ironsworn, a dark fantasy RPG that's designed to be played solo. My character is Yoa Ogerstand, a young woman who lives a nomadic life with her family ever since her father took the mantle of Sin Taker and was exiled from their community. She had just had a spot of bad luck, which is pretty common in this game, by getting attacked by some elder rats and then losing her family in a blizzard. It was there Yoa encountered an elf, a creature rarely seen by humans. It gave her a cryptic message, at which point she promptly passed out. She's now awoken in this encampment, which is where we pick up her story. So the first move I'm going to try is a move called Sojourn. I figure this maybe counts because she's interacted with another person. Maybe she did it while she was unconscious, but we're going to see if maybe the elf was nice and mended some of her wounds, or if he just kind of left her out to dry. So, Sojourn is the move that we're going to try. When you spend time in a community seeking assistance, roll plus heart. On a strong hit, you and your allies may choose 2 from the categories below. On a weak hit, choose 1. So she got a weak hit, which means that she can choose one of these conditions that are listed here. I'm going to go with recuperate. So she's going to take plus 2 health. So Yoa rises and dons her attire, and she's surprised to find that her wounds have been bandaged and treated. So with that, she takes this map and she ventures into the Shieldwood, attempting to follow it. The way is very harsh. They just had a blizzard, so all the tracks are covered up. The land is packed with even more snow. There's an eerie quiet as the snow seems to absorb all the sound, save for her plodding footsteps. The smell of juniper and elderberries in the crisp morning breeze keeps her senses alert and focused. As she walks around, she scans the area for supplies to make camp later, or for any trace of game. Unfortunately, she's unprepared, so she doesn't have anything that she can use to store these supplies. Even her pockets are all torn up, so she's not able to save any of this for later. Most of the woods are too damp to start a fire, and whatever animals were here have long since gone into hibernation or are hiding from the storm. So Yoa's following this map. She's going to try to gather information to try and glean what she can and try to track the elf and find her family. That is a big ol' miss, which means that she has to pay the price. In this sense, I'm going to say that the most logical outcome happens. The most logical negative outcome happens. So in this case, Yoa attempts to follow the map. Unfortunately, the map is hastily drawn and confusing when compared to the thick underbrush and the densely packed trees. Yoa feels like she's going round in circles. She tries to mark the trees with her hunting knife, but this does not seem to help. Okay, so I'm going to try kind of a unique move here, because I feel like Yoa is feeling kind of disheartened right now. She needs something to pick her spirits up, motivate her to continue this quest. I'm going to say that she remembers the vow she made to help others so that her life would not be in vain. And I'm going to say that this makes her feel like she needs to swear a vow to her family in order to motivate her to finish this. So she's going to swear an iron vow, and I'm going to describe how she does this now. Yoa kneels down, quiets her mind, takes a deep breath, listens to the stillness of the forest. She takes the iron helm of her dagger and touches it to her lips. Then she whispers, "Till barren fields bear fruit, till the sea's fury quells, till the forest gloom parts and evil fades from the world, I, Yoa Olgerstand, bind myself to this vow. I will rescue you, Padma, Ada, and Mortar, my father. I forged this vow in iron for all of time." Okay, so when you swear an iron vow to complete a quest, you write down your vow and you give the quest a rank. Then you roll plus heart. On a strong hit, you are emboldened and it is clear what you must do next. On a weak hit, you're determined, but begin your quest with more questions than answers. On a miss, you face a significant obstacle before you can begin your quest. That is a strong hit. So she's emboldened, and it is clear what she must do next. So she takes +2 momentum, and I'm going to go ahead and ask the Oracle what that means. So I'm going to roll on the table here, and I got prove worthiness, which is kind of a vague prompt, but I'm going to see what I can do with that. So, prove worthiness. I think that Yoa realizes that perhaps this elf is trying to test her somehow. That perhaps he's challenging her to find him at this waterfall for some kind of purpose. She doesn't know what. But she's emboldened by this. She thinks that the elf would not have given her this test if he didn't feel like she could complete it. Also, I'm going to say that something occurs to her. She looks at the map again. The snake mask drawing obscures a spot on the map where the Godstone would have been. The Godstone that she and her family ran into on the bluffs. Assuming that the Godstone was in that spot, I'm going to say Yoa is able to reorient herself and discern the proper path. She presses onward, cutting east through the trees and happening upon a quiet stream. She follows that stream and sees that it is growing steadily wider and faster. Eventually, she sure enough arrives at a large waterfall. The cascade is several hundred feet high. The falls are broken down by a fallen tree and spill out into a deep river, so deep she can't see the bottom. Upon investigating the falls, she notices there is a small plank walkway jutting from the broken tree around the falls into a small cave. Okay, so before she goes gallivanting in, I'm going to say Yoa takes some time to prepare. She's going to use Secure an Advantage So for this roll, anytime you assess a situation, make preparations, or attempt to gain leverage, you envision what you're going to do and you roll for it. In this case, I think she's going to prepare some of her arrows because she's a Fletcher and she's also an archer. So I think that she's going to use her archer skills to get a lay of the land and figure out her best approach. And she's also going to try to flesh some quality arrows because she might need them. She doesn't know what she's going to be walking into. Okay, so for Fletcher, if I secure advantage with arrows, I add +1 to my roll. And on a hit, I can take either +1 supply or +1 momentum. And if I use my archer combat talent, when I secure an advantage, I can choose to trust my instincts, in which case I roll +wits and take +2 momentum on a strong hit, or I can line up a shot and roll +edge and take +1 momentum on a strong hit. There's nothing really to line up her shot for right now, so I'm going to say she just trusts her instincts. So this will be a +wits roll. And that's going to be a weak hit. We're going to hear a lot of those. So on a weak hit, you get an advantage, but it's short-lived. You take +1 momentum. And she's going to take another +1 momentum because of her Fletcher skill. So this area is new to her, and she's up against an unknown threat. So she's unlikely to gain total control of the situation. However, her natural hunter instincts have given her an edge. Now more prepared, she feels more confident. She attempts to sneak into the hidden cave behind the falls. Yoa is able to sneak quietly along the plank. However, as this is the only route inside the cave, she has no means of ensuring that she will not be seen once she's inside. Passing through the misty veil of the falls, Yoa comes upon a small campsite. Her father Mortar, Padma, and Ada are unconscious on the floor. There's no sight of anyone else. Yoa stealthily runs from cover to cover between stones to get to them. She checks their vitals. They are indeed alive. She's about to cut them loose when, seemingly from thin air in front of her, a lanky, pale gray hand lunges out at her throat. Alright, since this is a combat move, she's being ambushed, so she's going to enter the fray. So we're determining who's in control of the situation here, so she's going to roll +wits. And that's a hard miss. So her foe has the initiative and she pays the price. So a pale gray hand lunges out at Yoa's throat. She hacks and sputters as she feels herself being lifted up off the ground. Stepping out of the veil of nothingness is the elf she'd seen in the bluffs, wearing the snake mask. Yoa tries to stab him with her hunting knife in order to break free. So this is going to be a clash. When your foe has initiative and you're fighting with them in close quarters, you roll +iron. Unfortunately, that's another miss. Yoa attempts to stab the elf's hand, but with the deftness of a snake, the elf twists Yoa's hand, seizes the knife, and flips it around, stabbing her in the shoulder. Yoa takes 2 harm. And as always, when we endure harm, there's an endure harm move that we have to do to see if we make it even worse. So we have to roll +health or +iron, whichever one's higher. So that's a miss. So she suffers -1 momentum. She's not at 0 health yet, so we don't have to roll on the death table, which is good because it's called the death table. The elf leaves the knife buried in her shoulder, affecting her ability to move her harm. The elf throws her against the rock wall and pins her by the neck. "Asaka," he hisses. "You steal from death, Yoa Olgerstand. What do you want with me?" Yoa chokes. "To steal more." The elf throws Yoa to the ground. Yoa springs up and readies her bow, but not before the elf can point out his own bow at her father's throat. A tense silence springs up between them. Behind them, the thundering falls roar ominously. "Please," Yoa says, "don't hurt them. If it's me you want, come get me. Leave them out of it." The elf glances at Mortar. "Sin Taker," he says. "What mean this?" Yoa hesitates. She's not sure whether she should respond. She says, It means our family, did something bad. The elf doesn't quite seem to understand, so she tries again. It means we are outcasts. We have no home. No home. The elf seems to ponder this. Then, keeping his arrow pointed at Mortar, he looks up at Yoa. Rakshasa. I have need. You help. You want me to help you? You have a funny way of asking for it. The elf doesn't seem to understand. Yoa says, Let my family go, then we'll talk. The elf shakes his head. Gorialis, he says. Test strength. You want to challenge me? A duel? Duel. The elf nods. He taps his chest with his bow. Yes, duel. I strong. You help. You strong. I go. Yoa's unsure about how to proceed here. She has no reason to believe the elf will keep his word. On the other hand, he seems to know enough about Ironlander culture to know how to exploit the honor-bound duel. Besides, she's not really in a position to bargain right now with him pointing his arrow at her father. She says, All right, I accept. So we're going to have ourselves a duel, so we're going to draw the circle right now. When you challenge someone to a formal duel or accept a challenge, roll plus heart. So she got a weak hit. On a weak hit, you may choose one boast in exchange for +1 momentum. So these boasts are actually things that might actually be disadvantages in the actual fight, but they give her certain benefits. So she's going to get +1 momentum in exchange for the boast, Grant First Strike. So she's going to give her foe the initiative. Yoa and the elf draw their halves of the circle. Yoa is thinking carefully about this situation. The elf is fast and strong. She's already bloodied. The only way she figures she can win is by surprise. If she lets him think that he has the upper hand, maybe she can exploit his confidence. She tells the elf that per custom, she will allow him to have the first strike. As she says this, she surveys him in an attempt to discover a weak point. So she's going to secure an advantage. She's going to try to assess the elf to see if there's a weakness she can exploit. And that's going to be a miss. So she has to pay the price. That's one thing about this game, is anytime you try to do a move and fail, you have to pay some kind of consequence. It makes for good storytelling, but it is very frustrating. So normally in a duel, the opponents bow to each other as a sign of respect before officially beginning the fight. Yoa maybe expected the elf to follow this tradition while she scanned for a weak point on him. Apparently that was a mistake. As soon as the circle is drawn, the elf attacks with a fierce volley from his bow. Yoa is taken off guard and attempts to dodge. That's going to be a face danger roll. And that is again a miss. I'm going to go ahead and burn my momentum to turn it into a strong hit. So on a strong hit, whatever I'm trying to do is successful and I get +1 momentum. So she was attempting to dodge this arrow and she succeeds. So I'm going to say Yoa's adrenaline spikes and she's propelled forward so fast that it takes even the elf off guard. Yoa regains the initiative. Forgoing the bow, Yoa tears out the knife from her shoulder and swipes at the elf's ankle, attempting to debilitate him. This is a strike move. She gets a weak hit, so she inflicts her harm on the elf, but she loses the initiative. The strike is true. The elf cries out in pain and drops his bow. However, Yoa loses her balance and falls prone to the ground. She gets up. just in time to block a swinging punch from the elf. So this is going to be a clash roll. She misses. The elf's strike is far too strong, breaking through her block. His fist crashes into Yoa's jaw. Her vision blurs, and the world spins around her. She takes 2 harm. She's going to make an endure harm move. It's a weak hit. On a weak hit, she shakes off the pain and presses on. Yoa nearly passes out, but her will to prevail forces her to shake it off. Her clarity returns, and she assumes a guarded stance, ready for the next strike. The elf advances, feigns a blow to her side, then drops low and performs a sweeping kick. They clash again. It's a weak hit. Inflict harm and pay the price. Yoa is tripped, but manages to lunge forward and slash the elf's chest with her dagger before falling. Her back hits the ground hard, sending a wave of pain through her already battered body. She coughs up blood and sees dark spots in her field of vision. She's going to endure harm again, and this time it's a miss. So she suffers -1 momentum. Also, her health is now at 0, so she's taking the wounded debility, which means she can't regain health until she's in a community where she can get patched up. And now, because she has 0 health, she's going to roll on the death table. It looks like she is battered but still standing. So now, and whenever we endure harm, we're going to have to roll on that table to see what happens, whether or not we die or take another debilitating effect. The elf pins Yoa down and tries to punch her. Yoa attempts to drive her dagger into his side and buck him off. So this is a clash move. This time it's a strong hit. She inflicts +1 harm onto her normal amount of harm, and she retakes the initiative. Yoa succeeds in plunging the knife into the elf's side. It's enough leverage to help her throw the elf off balance and roll out from under him. Gasping and bleeding out, both of them stand up wearily and face each other. Yoa is battered but has the upper hand for now. However, Yoa also is aware that she doesn't have much left in her. While she has landed a couple decent blows, the elf is still stronger and faster than her. She feels she needs to end this fight right now. So, she makes a risky play. She throws the knife at him, with the intention to distract him long enough to grab her bow and take a shot to drive him out of the circle. So this is a move called End the Fight. When you make a move to take decisive action and score a strong hit, you may resolve the outcome of this fight. So we're going to roll our challenge dice and compare it to the progress we've made on the elf. However much harm we inflicted, I think we inflicted about 5 harm total. So our challenge dice needs to be lower than 5 in order for us to end the fight the way we want it. If it's higher, the fight still ends, but there's a price to pay. That is, thankfully, a strong hit. The foe is no longer in the fight, and we can choose how we want to resolve the fight. So I'm going to say, Yoa throws the knife. The elf dodges, but is distracted just long enough. Yoa grabs her bow and launches an arrow directly at the elf's face. The elf hurtles backwards to dodge, and just barely steps out of bounds. "I claim victory!" Yoa shouts, breathless. The elf looks down and sees that he has lost. Yoa keeps her guard up in case the elf decides not to honor the arrangement. However, the elf falls to his knees, dejected. "You strong," he says. "Anak shalai. It is well." The elf rises and slowly collects his bow and effects. Yoa watches him, pondering to herself. Why didn't the elf simply ask her for her help? It was true that humans distrust the elves, but kidnapping her family wouldn't help with that. She thinks back to the map he gave her. She thinks, he wanted to test me. He wanted to make certain I was strong enough, smart enough for something. She also remembers the elf took the time to heal her in the bluffs, perhaps to make sure she was at her best. He helped guide her towards this hideout. And why was he able to step out of thin air like that? Did all elves have that power? And how did he know about the Sin Taker mark? Wait, Yoa says to him. You've been following us, haven't you? The elf pauses, then nods his head. What is it that you need? Hesitating, the elf reaches up and removes his snake mask. Yoa sees his face, long and gaunt. His pale gray face is pockmarked by gruesome black boils. Yoa has seen this before, illustrations of the plague that racked the old world before her grandparents came here to the Ironlands. Steal from death, the elf says. You're sick, says Yoa. You need my help to find a cure? The elf shakes his head. No cure. Steal from death. A little. A little? A little for what? The elf reaches into his pack and pulls out a map. The map seems to lead to an elven village in the deep wilds, far to the west of the havens. There is a marker that appears to be a symbol depicting a person with strange swirls around them. You need to take care of something before you die, Yoa says. Some kind of treasure? The elf nods. Power. Save. Home. I save home. I no more outcast. You're trying to redeem yourself. You're an outcast, like my father. The elf nods. What are you trying to save your people from? The elf gestures to everything around them. These lands. Orakai. Hungry. Hungry for death. Yoa considers what the elf is saying to her. She respects the way the elf honored the duel. She also feels empathy for him and knows what it's like to live under the burden of a curse. She also guesses that the elf got sick because her people carried the plague over with them when they first came to the Ironlands. Yoa remembers the vow she took to redeem her own family's name. Perhaps helping this elf could improve relations between their people. Or perhaps this treasure he searches for, this power, could help her protect her family and others. All right, I will make you a deal. My family is hurt and starving. They need to get to C's gift. If you help us get there, I will help escort you to the deep wilds and find this power of yours. The elf stands up straight and faces Yoa. His face is inscrutable. Finally, he nods slowly. It is well. I accept. They shake hands. My name, Ilsit. Yoa, Yoa says. Together they unbind Yoa's family. They wake up and, upon seeing the elf, they're understandably shocked and afraid. But Yoa calms them and explains the situation. I think she leaves out the part where he kidnapped them. She just says that the elf helped save them from harm, and she was able to track them to this cave. So that seems to calm them down a little bit. They try to heal while they're inside the cave. So actually for this, she's going to go ahead and make a compel roll. So compel, when you attempt to persuade someone of something, you envision your approach and you roll. So I'm going to say that she's trying to convince them that the elf is their friend and that he actually helped save them from the blizzard. So she's going to roll plus heart. And she got a weak hit. So she takes +1 momentum. And the result is they do what you want, but they ask something of you in return. Also, they're going to roll to heal. And that's a miss. So they pay the price. The price is, I'm going to say, it is harmful. So she takes 1 harm. So they tried to heal. It didn't quite work. Yoa is wounded, so she can't get any health back yet. And her attempts at healing with their limited supplies do more harm than good. And as she's kind of weaving this tale about the blizzard, she's able to convince Padma and Ada, but Mortar does not look convinced. He's not saying anything about it, he just stays relatively silent. When they're ready to go, they pack up their things and set out on their journey. As they're walking, Mortar pulls Yoa aside and puts enough distance between them and the elf. Mortar whispers to her, "I know what's really going on. I will go along with this, for now, but on one condition. When the time is right, I want you to kill him." Yoa says, "Father, is that really necessary? He's trying to help us. He's a little misguided, but I feel that he has a good heart." Mortar says, "Listen to me. The elves cannot be trusted. But this may be an opportunity for us. If he does indeed want you to bring him to his village, you can use this as a chance to learn all that you can of the elf village and bring it back to our people so that we can launch an attack on them. This will earn us our favor, and we may possibly even redeem our family name." Yoa says, "Father, I don't feel like this is right." And Mortar says, Just promise me you will think about it. Remember the vow that you swore to redeem our family name. This is the way to do it." Yoa says, "I will consider it." We'll find out what Yoa does on the next episode of Just Roll With It. Just Roll With It is a production of Cult 1440. Find out more at cult1440productions.com. This episode we were playing Ironsworn by Sean Tompkin. Information in the description. You can find more information at ironswornrpg.com. Check out our other shows on the network like Echoes of X Caesar. And also check out our YouTube channel for a fun little sketch called Auditions That Didn't Make the Cut for Cats the Musical. It's a lot of fun. Sound effects courtesy of Garageband and freesound.org. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.